Dear Harstem, Zerg's macro is way overpowered. My opponent played proxy hatch against me that I countered with 2 adepts that killed overall 10 units and even managed to escape. My opponent then made a bunch of links that brought in absolutely nothing and couldn't even cancel my 3rd base. At the mid game I killed more than 10 drones with Oracle Harassment and managed to scout the Hydra then, to which I responded with a Robo-Bay. After sitting at his base, losing drones to my harassment and building the same unit, the Hydra, he just A-clicked me and I could do absolutely nothing. Even Overcharge didn't save me. This goes with the fact that my opponent lost 600 more resources than me. So, is Zerg IMBA? Or do I suck? The person who sent in this imbalance complaint form is a barcode on the European server in the Masters League with 4,200 MMR. The question is very simple. Is Zerg imbalanced or does he suck? And we're here to find out. Alright, here we go. Ryan in the bottom left spawning as our Zerg player, the imbalance race. And in the top right we have our barcode player. He actually wrote the word barcode on the imbalance complaint form as the name, but has an actual barcode as the nickname. So I was kind of hoping it would be like the ironic barcode. I really like people that just write out the word barcode properly rather than relying on these types of cheap tricks on the lower level. So for the people that don't quite understand the entire barcode hype in general, the reason why barcodes became popular was for professional players to hide their strategy on the ladder so that then they could play it in tournaments. It would be hard for people to prepare for someone that only practices on a barcode, right? You don't know who it is, especially if there's 10, 20 different barcodes. It becomes quite tricky to figure out who is who, and especially to organize replays unless you tag them, you know, if you know which barcode is who, then you need to tag them individually and save them, and a lot of pro gamers are quite lazy. So barcodes are very efficient when it comes to that. Sadly, this behavior also became popular on the ladder at lower levels, not because these people wanted to perform well in tournaments, but because they didn't want to get blind countered or hard countered when playing on the ladder, which that is the one thing that I think barcodes kind of suck for, honestly, in a way, is that if you're never getting blind counted or if you're never getting hard countered, you're not ready for that in tournaments either. I think it's good practice to get blind counted. I think it's good practice to be very far behind in the early game sometimes. You know, it makes sure that your build orders are tight. If you never have to play against someone that says, hey, this guy loves 4-gate blink, let me just do the hardest counter to 4-gate blink. And then when you end up playing against that type of hard counter in a tournament, you won't be ready for it because you've never been really exposed to that. So I think at lower levels, barcodes usually are not super useful, unless your goal, of course, is to raise MMR. If your goal is to raise MMR, go ahead, go barcode, change your port rate after every single game. But if your goal is to improve and become the most well-rounded player possible, that's not what you should be doing. This was a proxy hatch in which the hatch got cancelled by a good response out of the Protoss. Okay, let's pretend that this assimilator... Okay, I'll go back in time. Okay, assimilator hasn't quite built yet. A great response here out of the Protoss player. Pulled 5 workers, build a zealot, which got chrono boosted for a little bit. Not a huge fan of the chrono boost, but everything else is absolutely perfect. And the way that you want to continue from here on out is you probably want to even cancel this worker right now, get your 2 adepts out, and then build a nexus as soon as possible. The reason why it's important to build a nexus as soon as possible and not to get an assimilator here is because you don't want to oversaturate your base too much. Because right now what's going to happen, now imagine, yeah, well, we know the assimilator is going to go down. Woo. Woo, assimilator. So your nexus is going to be delayed by quite a bit. You want to probably produce some workers for that assimilator as well if you want it to be useful. That delays your nexus even further. And it means you're going to have more oversaturation, less workers overall, because once again, your nexus is going to be delayed. So just a crappy situation all around, in my opinion. Probably want to cut the next 2 adepts out, at least for a little bit. I'd love to see Warp Gate start, though. I think that's generally a good call. Is that we see even a Stargate before the nexus. So that makes this type of attack a lot more all-in. A proxy hatch on the natural of the Protoss is not an all-in by Zerg. It is actually a trick to try and get ahead. If your opponent responds poorly, which is what the Barcode player is doing here, then you might get ahead. Now, Zerg player also doesn't have the greatest setup to defend this, and was forced into building hatchery over here on the third base, which actually really freaking sucks, because then the Zealot plus double Adept is going to deal some serious damage. Adept somehow missed that drone. I want to see that interaction again. That was freaking impressive. Look at this. He right-clicked the drone. I want to see that for a third time. What in the world was that? How is that even possible? Oh, I think I know what happened. So, okay, I know exactly what happened. So what happened here is that these Adepts, they shoot something just before their shade finishes, and thus their attacks are on cooldown. So he'll probably shoot see? The last thing he does is shoot this hatch. So then you're right-clicking the drone. He's like, wait, I can't shoot? It's still on cooldown. It feels really weird. And that's his own mistake, really. So, could have been -1 more drone. A bit of a mistake, but it happens to the best, of course. Overall, the damage that has been dealt has been good enough, I think. Like, if you can take out all these links, especially if you were to target fire and not split shot everything. I think he did 2-3 shots there. Ended up killing 1 link. That's not a great return of investment. Whoop, I was gonna get more. I mean, this is just so good for you. This is so freaking good. There's some worker production behind this as well. Stargate has been supply blocked for... well, quite a while. Actually, that Stargate went down pretty quickly because that was with the second gas. Now, an entire Chrono Boost has been used on it as well. So the reason why the second gas got built was for the faster Stargate. But then the Oracle didn't pop out anyway because he was supply blocked. And now the Nexus is the thing that unsupply blocks him. This is beautiful in a way. This really is quite beautiful in a way. Adepts coming back home. This is not really the end of the world. You can just build a pylon here temporarily, or even a gateway or a cybernetics core. In this case, I actually think a gateway would be the best thing to build here. So you see that this is some nice theory as well. So if you're being Baneling all-in or Roach all-in, the thing that you want is probably a cybernetics core, and you want to have these 3 hexes, ready, so you can build a 3x3 building that can either be a forge, gateway, or cybercore. Now, the reason why against roaches and baneling boss, why I want a cybernetics core, is because it gains HP the fastest. A cybercore has 550 health, 550 shields, and builds in 36 seconds, while a gateway has 500 health and 500 shields, and it builds in 46 seconds. So it takes a longer time, and thus the overall health per second increase is much lower on the gateway. So if you're being all-in by something that really, tries to get in fast and most likely is going to succeed as well, you probably want to have some type of cybernetics core. However, in this case, where it is a non-committed all-in, most likely, a gateway is better because it builds for 46 seconds. That gives you a lot of time for you to not forget to cancel. If you build a pylon, like we saw our Barcode friend do right here, it finishes in 18 seconds, and that means that now you're stuck with a pylon, because most likely 18 seconds after you start the pylon, the link flood is still being active. It is still trying to kill, but you know that it's going to stop the moment your Oracle finishes up and the moment your first battery finishes up. This seems like a little bit of overkill. Double battery, full wall on top of everything. Also think we had a bit of a probe cut during it, because all of a sudden we're a little bit behind in workers, which shouldn't really be possible, I think, after the early game that our Protoss player had. This is like getting insulted on the street one time by like a 7-year-old that calls you a loser, then deciding to get like a personal security detail walking around your neighborhood when you're, walking your dog or something like that because you're too afraid. It's like, well, perhaps you really are a loser if that is, the type of action you take after being called once. Like, it's too much. It's a lot of overkill here. Not a huge fan of it. Really not a huge fan of it. Oracles coming in are gonna get a lot of kills. I mean, this Zerg is just not defending very well. Still up a worker somehow, some way. Freaking phenomenal production. Just been building drones this entire time. I really do believe that this Ling investment was worth it. And it was a Ling investment that kind of was a reaction to the initial Adepts, It forced out a lot. Nexus on the third, extremely delayed over here as well, which is important to note. It's just extremely delayed. God. More gases coming down. Spore positioning is not quite brilliant in my opinion. This spore... This is fine if you have like 12 queens. Yeah, this is something people copy from Raynor. Raynor does this quite a bit. Like he puts it on the outside, and then the queens, they cover this area. But then the oracles can't easily fly in towards the main base. And then you have like lower level players like, oh, if Raynor puts the spore over here, surely it's good. Yeah, but the thing about Raynor is that his queens are always in position, and also that he gets like 8 queens. Right now, the Zerg player has 4 queens. So this is basically now an empty base. Like if the 3 oracles, if they show up over here, snipe the queen and then take out 15 drones, this spore is just gonna be sitting there like from a distance. Like, what am I supposed to do, guys? This is not the position I was supposed to be built in. It's not good. It's really not good. Okay, this was the attack on the third base. This is just the leftover links from earlier, though. This actually is just... Like, this was not supposed to cancel a third. This was more of a scout, see if he could take out an adept. Like, this is not a serious assault. Protoss player still down in workers at this point. Hasn't quite saturated these gases. Scout on the Hydra then hasn't happened yet either. We're gonna see that over here right now. Another hatchery. This Zerg has a freaky way of playing, let me tell you that. I'm not a huge fan of it, but still ahead, so don't hear me complain. Hydras as a response to 3 oracles is kind of what it feels like, or maybe just because it wants the Hydra all in. At this point, the Hydra then has been scouted though. He said he was gonna respond with the Robo-Bay and Colossus, I think. 3 oracles moving around. This is a really weird attack. Yes, he's down in workers, but it doesn't actually matter so much. Like, if you see that your opponent is on 4 gases, no fort base, as a Protoss player, all you need to do is survive. You just sit back, relax, wait till your opponent kills yourself into you, because it's going to be pure, well, a lot of links in there. There might be roaches, there might be hydras, but it's mainly, there's going to be a lot of links because there's simply no gas for, a never-ending stream of hydras. Also, a never-ending stream of hydras is quite bad, to be frank. There's no upgrades with this either. Robo-Bay has finished up, and I think a disruptor would be the correct call. Now, this has all been spotted, right? The fact that it's 4 gas, the fact that there's no fort base. So that means that getting extra batteries here would probably be a good call, or extra cannons would be a good call as well. Even in bases, you just build batteries. Invest your money in batteries. All you need to do. A fort base. This is an interesting one. Well, interesting. It's a mistake. A pretty sizable mistake as well. That's a lot of minerals that you could have invested in static defense. Now, if you're being attacked and your choice is between a Nexus or 4 batteries and a cannon, usually the batteries and the cannon are much better. It's a bit as if you're being attacked on the street and you could pick to either have a knife or an apple and half a potato. Now, sure that if you're very creative, the potato could be useful. What is this? Look at this. Like, what was the thought process here? Let me just blink into melee range of the links? What? Well, MMR was... Yeah, 4,200. 4,200 MMR. The entire point of blink is that you can blink back. Blink your stalkers to safety. Or for chasing. Your opponent is in a position. This is beautiful. This probe is... Like, this entire setup is so good, actually. I freaking love this setup. There's a cannon over here. You could build a stasis as well. You have this wall going for you. If your opponent needs to chase you right now, that would suck. You have 1 Colossus kind of on the way. This Robo-Bay went down like 3 minutes ago. Why is there no Colossus out? This Blink Fort is not it, mate. Super Battery also can't even heal majority of the Stalkers. Like, Super Battery was actually inactive for a majority of this fight. It's just healing the Oracle. That's it. Now it's gonna do this 1 Stalker. This is a terrible fight. This is actually... And now the game just ends. I mean, yeah. You could have stalled for so much longer here if you wouldn't have lost all of your Stalkers on the left side for free by blinking into melee range. And now the Colossus shows up. What is this? Okay, sorry, I want to check a couple of things. I didn't think this game was going to end so fast. Okay. When was the Robobay? When did that start? I feel like it was with the push out. Okay, so Robobay finishes up 8 minutes and 20 seconds in, right? So you definitely could have had a Colossus had you started one immediately. But what did you say in the stupid form? I killed more than 10 drones with Oracle harassment, and I even managed to scout the Hydra then, to which I responded with a Robobay. So this might be my poor understanding of the English language in general. Okay, I'm not a native speaker. But if you say I responded to that with a Robobay, I kind of assumed that it naturally followed that you would get something out of the Robobay that would help in the defense. Because otherwise, why would you mention that as a good thing? It's like, they were threatening my life, so as a response, I bought a bulletproof vest. And then you get shot, they open up your shirt, no bulletproof vest, because you left it at home in the closet. It's like, what? Like, surely, if you're bragging about getting the Robobay as a response to a Hydra then on, you get a unit out of the Robobay that is impactful, or that did anything. Like, you can't complain about it if you didn't use it. You can't sue the manufacturer of the bulletproof vest because you left it at home in your closet when you get shot. Well, I didn't wear it at the time, but it still didn't work. It's like, yeah, no crap. Holy cow. I don't even quite know what to say. I feel like the position was way better than you deserved, mainly due to the Zerg's very poor early game and poor harassment defense overall. Your builder, there was legitimate balls. Your response to the cheese was legitimate balls. But the Zerg follow-up also just wasn't so tight. And he masses Hydras. You scout it. You could have prepared for it. You knew there was a Hydra incoming because you built a Robobay. But you also get a fort base. It's like, not entirely sure. This is like putting half of your money on roulette on the black color and then half of your money on red. Repeat this experiment for 7 hours, then realize you have no more money left. It's like, oh, how did that work? It's like, yeah, no crap. It's like the middle of the road is not always the greatest thing. Cannons and batteries and a Colossus, and you're fine. Well, also don't blink your entire army into your opponent's links. Like, you want to reduce surface area using blink, not increase it. I mean, I'm impressed by the Zerg's ability to come back after the very poor early game, taking a lot of damage, but you made it very easy. This had little to do with Zerg being overpowered, and more to do with you sucking at reading games and just not responding properly and god-awful micro. So sorry, my dear barcode friend. You suck. And that's just the way it is. All right, that's going to be it for today's episode of Is It IMBA or Do I Suck? If you did enjoy this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to send in your own replays using the form in the description. And hopefully I'll see all of you next time for a new video. Thanks so much for watching. And bye-bye. A right eye blink. Never get these. Rare commodity.